Well, hello. Welcome back to another exciting edition of Coffee with Stephen. So, this week's blog is entitled From Rome to Washington. And it's a little bit longer than my normal blogs. Typically, when I draft a blog, I try to keep it within about 2 pages. This sucker actually made it all the way to 5. So, you're going to probably need to spend a little bit more time reading this particular blog that comes out on Wednesday. Scott, I do expect you to read the blog and not just watch these videos. That all being said, um, been a lot of discussion over the last couple of years, ironically, from a lot of Democratic candidates for president at the time that were trying to sort of create a similarity between what's happening right now in the United States and the French Revolution. I always thought that was somewhat misguided, though I will tell you there's certain parallels that clearly are present, especially when it comes to the way that we govern ourselves socially. There definitely seems to be some similarities to the terror that was promulgated by Robespierre. But that was not really my focus. My chief concern is what happens when a republic dies. And for that, I went back and I looked at the transitional period between the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire. I also looked at the Napoleonic era as well as Hitler, although candidly, those are a little bit more muted. The real focus is based on the Roman Republic to the Roman Empire, and what I suspect has a real high probability of taking place in the United States, where we may actually transition from being a republic to becoming an empire. This seems to be a natural evolutionary prospect. There was, or is, a great philosopher named Samuel Huntington who had essentially articulated back in the 1990s that the idea of ideological warfare, the idea that nation states are designed to promulgate ideas and philosophies, and those are what drive the human experience and the interactions between other competing philosophies. That was a relatively new idea and not something that was ultimately going to be sustainable. And in fact, the natural order is to dispense with that concept and move back to the basic tribal nation state concepts that have governed the international order for really all of human history. And there is some legitimate empirical evidence to suggest that's the direction we're going. And if we do go back to that original idea, that would take us, as I said, all the way back to the fall of the Roman Republic. And when you start analyzing that fall, you start seeing some really creepy similarities to what's going on in the United States right now. Now, there's an old line that those who are unable to remember history are condemned to repeat it. There's truth to that, but a lot of people have misinterpreted that statement to assume that history is a cyclical thing and that it always repeats itself. That's really not correct. History doesn't repeat itself, but it does operate oftentimes on parallel tracks. And we definitely can learn a lot about where we're going from where we've been in the past. It also is somewhat of a cautionary tale. Now, my blog is not to be construed as an argument. It's not even to be construed as a warning. Think of it more of as an empirical statement. This just is the way it is. And there are some things that we may be able to do to prevent us from going off in that particular direction, assuming that the body politic of the United States is even interested in keeping ourselves as a republic and instead moving into empire status. But once the republic falls, empire status becomes absolutely mandatory. And with that, we end up basically throwing our lot behind a dictator. And sometimes, as I reference with Octavian, or as he was later known as Caesar Augustus, that dictator could be very benevolent and could actually be incredibly beneficial for the lifestyles of those people who live within the empire. But then again, the emperor could also be somebody like Julius Caesar or even Nero. So there's always going to be that issue, and it's something that I believe probably does need to be prevented. Okay, our republic is absolutely elegant in the way that it was created. And yet, there seems to be a wholesale interest on the part of many different individuals that are focused on factionalism that find the Republic and our sort of inherent institutions to be contrary to their own personal agenda. The irony is that if we do naturally move towards empire status, this factionalism will absolutely go away because there's no way that the state will allow there to be any dissent, both from the right or from the left. So, in some respects, those that seek to have the downfall of the United States also are putting the noose around their own throat. In any event, grab a cup of coffee or a more adult beverage if you so desire. Read the blog. You may completely disagree with my analysis. That's perfectly acceptable. As always, you can email me directly at steven@artemishq.com. As always, I want you to train constantly, train consistently, train repetitively, and train with purpose. Above all else, stay safe.